Hi everyone, Mark here. I'm the founder of the Arts and Culture Network. I do use these timed videos to keep a track of how we're growing. So for the benefit of my benefit mainly, we're currently approaching 25,000 members. We're at, I think, 200,000 user sessions per month, which is just great. And it's all going in the right direction, which is fantastic. So that's my little note. So I'm delighted that Mahmood has joined me for this chat. We're going to have a little bit of a deeper dive into the work that he does and the services that he provides. Mahmood is a 2-year member of our organization and one of the first full members, which is great. He's an extremely supportive member of our gang. Doesn't get the chance to come to as many meetings that we have as he
I know, shame.
But after this, I'm sure he'll come to one and you'll get a chance to meet him there. Mahmood, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely my pleasure, Mark.
It's great. I love the fact that you have an accountancy business that supports arts and culture and charitable and social enterprise clients, and that it's called I Hate Numbers. I just think that's genius. I love it. I can't imagine that there'll be many situations in which you meet people and you're forgotten terribly quickly. So congratulations on that. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Do you want to give us the quick pitch, and then we'll talk in more detail about the two things that I was really keen to talk about is what makes you special for arts and culture organizations as an accountant. I love the idea of financial storytelling. That's just bringing everything together. And also the numbers know-how initiative that you've got going on. So, I mean, start wherever you like, but perhaps give us the elevator pitch first, and then we'll talk more about the other two, if that's okay.
Yeah, in the attempt to be that sort of very brief person, I would say that the pitch would be that my role, my mission, is to achieve 3 or 4 things for artists and arts and social organisation. One is to increase their financial awareness and literacy. B, to help them make more money out of whatever they're doing, and making money is a critical, vital thing. Whatever your purpose is, if you don't make surpluses, you're going to be doomed to failure, and you're going to be running a hobby full time, saving time, saving tax, and actually having a stressful life where you can actually navigate through the path and do what you do, deliver your why, but actually understand that the numbers play an important role in actually delivering that why as well.
Brilliant. I think you said stressful. I'm assuming you meant stress less.
Or stress less, yeah.
No, that's brilliant. That's really, really important. I mean, as a slight aside, I posted recently on the group a poll or a question, up for discussion. Is grant funding worth the risk, cost, hassle, and hurdles? And when we set this up, as you know, I was determined that we would remain independent, self-funded, self-governing, self-determining, sustainable, inclusive, diverse, and borderless, and we remain that way. We don't have any sponsors at present, when we don't depend on any kind of funding, which is a really quite a strong position to be in, and any subscription-based organization has the benefit of a certain amount of certainty when it comes to future revenue. So, for example, on our website, I know exactly how much is going to come in August, and that based on existing subscriptions. That doesn't take into account anything we might do. So I absolutely appreciate the importance of knowing that. And who is it? Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad.
That's right. Yeah.
He said the most important thing is financial literacy. Because you can't really do anything with any kind of certainty unless you have that. So I love those boxes that you're ticking for people, because it's not just bookkeeping. There's so much more to it, to have somebody like you on your elbow, keeping an eye on things, steering. Do you think that's wise just at the moment, or you've got some surplus? I think you should invest in something. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. And on top of which, you've got a beautifully creative approach to your own branding, which is fantastic. So Congratulations.
From a marketer, Mark, that's quite a compliment. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. I think it's great. If we have time, I'll tell you some of my other favorites. I think my own favorite that I named when it comes to brand names, I was asked to come up with a name for a flower stall in a hospital. And I racked my brains for ages and I came up with stem cell.
Oh, I like that.
It went down quite well. And then they stopped selling flowers in hospital. So, you know, the rug got really pulled from under them. So tell me more about the kind of people you're working with in the accountancy business and the sort of people you'd really like to work more with.
Well, in terms of all the different, I've been fortunate in my career that I've worked internationally, nationally, across different sectors here. And as a sector that's got a lot of dynamism, a lot of creativity in a lot of different ways here, I do like working with artists and I like working with arts and social enterprise organisations as well. Because they represent businesses. And I think anybody who says an arts organisation, if it's a charity, isn't a business, is talking out their backside, because they're businesses, they get together, they deliver why. The differences are the profit they're making may be applied for a different purpose compared to a private company. I love working with arts organisations, so I've been fortunate enough to work with things like Arts Council, National Theatre, UK Theatre, quite the big boys, I would call them, down to artists who got a lot of dynamism, do good stuff, but still need to understand and navigate that. So for me, I'm deliberately focusing over the next period of time in my business chapter about working more with those organisations, to getting to make sure they got good systems. They tend to work with very finite resources here. And what I love about the arts environment, the cultural landscape, if you want to look at it for innovation, if you want to look for ways of working smartly with very little resources, because they've always been under the cosh, they do extremely well. And for me to contribute to that landscape, to help them have better systems, better reporting to their board, better understanding of where they're making money, how to do all those difficult things there as well. You know, it's quite rewarding. And having worked in that space as a trustee, an advisor and a volunteer, it's a great part of my business enjoyment, as well as actually sort of, you know, making a living out of it as well.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, I'm the chair of an independent charity in Chelmsford called Culture Chelmsford. We've just launched a 10-year strategy for turning Chelmsford into a culturally ambitious destination. So yeah, I think that's great that you do that kind of work. But isn't it an irony though, Mahmood, that we work in a sector that makes more money for this country than sport does, yet so many of the practitioners are scraping around hand to mouth.
100%.
It's really quite odd. And take music for example. I guess the worst thing that ever happened to music, you could argue, is the advent of recording, because before then we all played and sang. It was more of a cultural lifestyle activity than a spectator sport, you know. But we've seemed to have sort of evolved across the arts into an industry that has at one end got Sotheby's making £14 million in a 1 hour sale, and at the other you've got a whole cohort of extremely ambitious creative individuals who are not equipped to write a grant application, you know, and it seems there's a real sort of stretch of in the same industry there. It's a shame that we seem to be, you know, we're at that point and then you've got, I think it was attributed to Winston Churchill during the war when he was criticized for maintaining the Arts Council's budget. He said something like, so why are we fighting, you know? And it's fascinating. So, but I'm on a rant. I apologize.
No, at all. I think it's all good. It's always very appropriate what you say there, Mark. And I think also if I look at it from my sort of short 40+ career in the arts here, what I've seen is an evolution where people appreciate the value of things, and now it's moving to the cost of things. And there's a lot of work that artists do and arts organisations do, that the main audience are the ones who have a need but can't actually pay for that service. So therefore what happens is artists are traditionally exploited. Artists are because the idea of money for them is not their primary purpose, which is, I think, is a great thing. But actually what they do, they lose connection. They don't really always appreciate that if they don't make a living, it has a negative impact on themselves, on their well-being, their ability to deliver. And there's a whole mishmash of things going on. And I think also funders and big people who make those decisions about how much money goes towards the arts take a very myopic view of what the arts represents and the good stuff they're doing. And largely, if I'm going to be political with a very small p, artists are there and arts organisations subsidise institutions and what happens in society, when that you could argue that should be the responsibility of something else. So artists fill in the gap. I think pre-pandemic, they were contributing something like about £6 billion plus to the British economy. I think they were the largest growing sector out of all the sectors that we have there as well. And they've taken a bit of a panning over the last 2 or 3 years here. I know I'm going slightly off point there as well, but I think it's really important that people understand that cultural experiences, and it has a very positive impact on people's lives here. Yeah. And, you know, it's important that that sector becomes vibrant.
Well, I think there's an underlying realization that if you look at the different countries around the world, and if you keep in mind our slide out of empire over the last sort of 200 years, different nationalities are known for doing different things really well. Okay, there used to be a saying that we would invent it, the Americans would market it, and the Chinese would copy it, right? There's truth in that, because we are, and you've only got to look at our music exports. There is and the fact that London is one of the leading, if not the leading, theatre cities in the world. We have an incredible capacity in this country to be innovative and creative and brave and different, and you can't go further back than that. With, you know, that's where everything starts. We're at the start. You know, as an example, the guy who invented the World Wide Web is British, right? You've got to only got to look at the work done on DNA. You know, sequencing DNA. Radio was invented in Chelmsford. You know, we have this incredible capacity, but what we don't do is recognize that that's our superpower as a country, as a former empire, right? It frustrates me that that's not seen better. And talking about the artists, there is a parallel with small businesses. You will know this, small businesses or people who, organizations that employ fewer than 250 people are 99.8% of the British economy, and a significant number of those employ fewer than 10 people. Yeah. I imagine the same is true in the art world, in that well, inevitably, because most arts practitioners are working on their own. But somebody published a survey recently that examined they worked out the hourly rate for an artist who was commissioned to do a public sector project, and it was £3 an hour. Now, it would be illegal in any other circumstances, but that seems to be the case. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. But tell me more about numbers know-how, because if we're all a bit more financially literate, and if we all have a bit more visibility of what's coming in, where it's going, what it's being spent on, what we can do to reduce the burden of certain costs and even, dare I say it, the tax liabilities. I can never remember whether it's evasion or avoidance that gets you into prison.
According to Dennis Healy, by the way, the difference between avoidance and evasion is the thickness of a prison wall. Evasion is the one where you might eat porridge or whatever delights they serve in prison, and avoidance is perfectly legal, that everybody does, from claiming allowances up to those people who are deciding to offshore. So evasion, definitely, folks, I would not recommend it. No. Avoidance, again, there might be a question of morals, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, exactly. But so tell me about the initiative.
So the initiative behind that is, I've got this idea that in terms of lots of organizations, lots of people who have got multiple projects going on, it's always this question: can I afford to do X? What happens if I do Y? And for somebody to make a decision about the future, they need to have a perspective about what that future might look like there as well. So therefore, planning, and I'm not talking about a plan as a formal document, but that planning mindset that says, I wish this is my destination point, first of all, and how do I actually get to that destination? What is it I need to do? What's the different resources I might require? What's the activity plan I've got to follow? And then what does that mean financially? Once you've got a route map in front of you, and you follow that route map, and you've got milestones to measure your progress, you review that, you reduce the amount of stress that you face. You can have decisions made with much greater certainty and much greater clarity. You're looking through the windscreen of your organization as opposed to through the rear view mirror.
Love that.
Yeah. And there's a few other things that's made why I think planning is such a liberating way of running your business there as well. Lots of arts organizations and artists, when they think, they've got to pivot, they've got to try new things, grant funding may be a very short-term injection of funds there, and funders always look at that as a very risky thing if you're dependent on grant funding. But if they're going to develop new services, new products and all the rest of it, they've got to have an idea about, if they expend energy and effort today, what does that actually mean that it might end up being in 6 months, a year's time? And when you can have that sort of planning horizon in front of you, it gives you much greater power there as well. And so out of all that, having worked with organizations for quite a number of decades here, I'm thinking lots of organizations still use spreadsheets, which are perfectly fine, but you need something much more powerful, much more robust. So I launched Numbers Know How about a year ago, which is effectively an online planning tool, which can look and track projects, can actually plan for what you want to, where the money's coming from, where it's going, but it can also monitor that against however you've kept your bookkeeping records here. So you can see at the end of each month what's going on. The level of compliance for arts organizations is much greater. They have more internal reporting, they have trustee reporting meetings and all the rest of it. So trying to give that cohort a tool, a platform, a community where they could engage with that and actually still do that within a manageable financial framework as well.
Sounds great, because I know I'm in my capacity, I know that we've struggled enormously at Culture Chelmsford to make sure that we're remaining compliant, ticking all the boxes with, and we're only a small charity at the moment in that respect. I can quite see it's genius, to be fair, if you can create a platform that works for people in those circumstances, that lifts the bar of their capability and at a kind of an affordable amount, because it's build it once, sell it many times, then I think that's genius, and that'll be, I'm sure it's very, very attractive and crucial for many people. So where can people find more about both the accountancy business and Numbers Know How, Mahmood?
Well, you can either go through the old website, so www.ihatenumbers.co.uk or numbersknowhow.co.uk.
Right.
You can obviously find me inhabiting YouTube channel on I Hate Numbers, so it's nice and easy to do. And then also I've got a podcast which I broadcast, I Hate Numbers, that's focusing more now towards the arts and social enterprises over the next few months. And then obviously you've got LinkedIn as well as the other platforms as well. I'm also dipping my toe in the TikTok waters, by the way, but no dad dancing or anything like that at this stage of the game.
We'll have to have another conversation, because I'm a proponent of minimalist marketing. One product or service to one small viable audience via one channel. That's right. So the Arts and Culture Network, because we've got pretty much where we've got to by offering an arts and culture community to arts and culture practitioners and professionals via networking, largely on LinkedIn. We don't do much anywhere else. I'm single-handed. So, if I tried to do that, I'd end up doing this, and I needed to do that. But
yeah, so that dilution, I agree with you there. It's a
challenge. Yeah. That's great, Mahmood. Thank you so much for giving us a bit more about that. I'd like to finish with a bit of fun, if that's okay.
Okay, no problem.
It's a very quick. I'd like to do our this or that game. So I'm going to mention two things, and you can only have one of them. You've got to tell me which one it is.
Okay.
And we'll rustle through it. It's a lovely way of getting to know how you tick for those people who had the pleasure of meeting you. So, tea or coffee?
Tea.
Radio or TV?
Radio.
Car or motorcycle?
Car. Motorcycle is a very dangerous thing, and I've crashed before.
Okay. Comedy or horror?
Oh, unbalanced comedy.
Concert hall or sports stadium?
Concert hall.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Library or museum?
It's either one or the other. I would probably say, the way these are going now, a museum.
Right. Beethoven or Mozart?
A Beethoven.
Rugby or football?
Rugby.
Not surprised in Leicester. Shower or bath?
A shower.
Sand or snow?
Ooh. I'm going to go for sand.
Nice. Indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
Early morning or early hours?
I'm going to go early morning.
Okay. Messy or tidy desk?
I will going to go for what I have is a messy desk, because a tidy desk is a sign of a sick mind.
A tidy desk is a sick mind.
A sign of a sick mind. That's what I'm going to convince myself with anyway.
Oh dear. I'm obsessive about my desk. I really am. Red or white wine or neither?
Red wine.
Batman or Superman?
I'm going back to the old fashioned ones. I'm going to go for Batman.
Okay. Numbers or words?
Oh, I think they're the same thing. So numbers. But
Okay.
numbers are words.
Rare or well done?
I'm a vegetarian, so I would say when I wasn't, well done.
Okay. Mild or spicy?
Spicy.
And finally, opera or chamber music?
On balance, I'm going to go for opera.
Okay. Love that. That's brilliant. We'll do another one another time so that we can do it. But the other one is the arts and culture hot top 10. We'll do that as a separate recording, because I think.
Oh, I'm curious. What's the top 10? Is that anything I think of?
Well, if you can do it quickly, we'll do it now.
No, and I'm going to think of that one. Is that particularly like either types of performance?
I give
artists?
you. It's more fun if you don't know what to expect.
Right.
But the idea is, I would, for example, the first question is, what's your favourite building and why?
Okay.
And then
I'm not going to overthink this.
Right.
Shall we do it now? Am I going to come up with any answers? I'll tell you what. Let's give it a go.
Okay.
If it's disastrous, we'll re-record it later on.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll stop this recording so that we can separate the two.
Yeah. Okay.
But so meanwhile, thanks very much, Mahmood.
No problem. I hope it was useful. I hope you got
Very
something
useful.
you can take from it. Yeah.
Brilliant.